Welcome everyone to the sixth round of the Tata Steel Masters 2025. On your screen is the candidate Matthias Bluebaum, and he takes on the second seed of the tournament, Arjun Erigaisi. Arjun started off the tournament brilliantly, 2.5 out of 4, and then he lost a critical fifth round to Vladimir Fedosiev in a very crazy encounter. But now Arjun has a chance to come back, and he will be trying to press with the black pieces against Matthias Bluebaum. Not at all an easy task, especially because Matthias is such a strong player. He is such a powerful positional player, and it's not at all easy to outwit him. There we see the FIDE president shaking hands with both the players. And I think it's time for us to begin. In the background, you can see Dana Raisniche Ozola with the gong there, and the game begins. Pawn to d4 by Matthias Bluebaum, a good move, and a move that he plays very often. d6 by Arjun. So Arjun choosing the slightly offbeat move, knight to f3, and maybe he'll convert it into a King's Indian. Knight comes out to f6, pawn to c4 played here by Matthias, and g6 played here by black. Knight comes out to c3 with the idea of playing e4, and bishop to f5, a slightly offbeat move because generally you play bg7 and allow white to play e4, but here he plays bishop f5 and Matthias instantly takes advantage of the weakness on b7. He plays queen b3, b6 played, and now h3 with the idea of g4 and bishop g2 on this long diagonal. Bishop comes out to g7, and now pawn to g4 played. He goes bishop to c8 and bg2 by Matthias, trying to create something on this diagonal. White castles, black castles, and by the way, knight e5 is met with pawn takes, rook, and you take ed4, and black is better. So you just can't play knight e5 yet. White castles in, and Arjun goes bishop to b7. Now, this bishop on b7 is a big price that black has to pay for provoking h3 and g4. This is why Arjun is taking immense amount of risk, because imagine a scenario where e4 and d5 come in. This bishop is blocked. Rook comes to d1. And so this risk taking which Matthias is doing here could easily backfire. I mean, that Arjun is doing can easily backfire because Matthias is playing very principally here. Queen c8. The queen defends the bishop, and e4 played here by white, capturing the center. Normal move here is to push your pawn to e5 next, which I'm pretty sure that Arjun will do. Yes, he plays his pawn to e5. And I think white can push the pawn to d5. And the bishop on b7, well, finds itself not so ideally placed. h5, striking at the h3 and g4 pawn structure. White does play the pawn to g5, and knight to h7 played. So the knight is now putting pressure on the g5 point. Bishop to e3, defending the pawn. And queen comes to d8. He plays pawn to b4, Now white would like to expand here with c5. Black has to create counterplay, and look at Arjun there. He's even ready to give up couple of tempi there. Comes back with his bishop to c8. Now rook a c1. Matthias playing so logically, he wants to play c5, f6. Boom, opening up the queen side, opening up the king side. The rook opens up here. Pawn takes pawn. And he plays bishop takes on f6. Queen comes to d2. And rook to f7. The rook comes up one square. He wants to play g5 at some point. This is a useful rook. It not only attacks but can also defend here. King h1 played, tucking the king to the side. Rook g1 is the idea for Matthias. The knight goes back to f8. And I've started to like black's position because black's bishop is well placed, the rook is well placed, the knight is good. c5 played. And g5. Arjun begins his play on the king side. Wow. Okay, this is a very sharp game. Anything can happen here. Knight to h2. Matthias trying to play and stop Arjun's play on the king side. And now the knight jumps into g6. So anyway, knight h4 on the cards, knight f4 on the cards. The bishop comes to f3, attacking the pawn here on h5. If you take bishop h3, I have bishop h5. That's what Matthias wants to do. I believe g4 could be an idea to break open the king side. He does it. Wow. Arjun is going all out here. He wants to checkmate the white king. So g4 on the board. And now h takes g4. He takes it. And if you take back at g4, then you can take on g4, but you also have rook g1. But instead he goes knight to g5. Now he's attacking the bishop. He takes on h5. So if knight takes f3, there's h takes g6 maybe. Oh no, the queen is hanging. He plays knight f3 and takes back knight takes f3. Now rook h7 definitely looks like a great move, pinning the pawn. But Arjun goes bg4 and he attacks the pawn, also the knight on f3. Looks like a very logical move. But h takes g6 now attacks the rook. Whew, what a game we are witnessing. Bishop takes f3. You can see Matthias there trying to calculate it through. Well, it's the kind of game that Arjun excels in. But I'm pretty sure that Matthias feels confident right now. Check king h2. And now rook to g7 makes a lot of sense. It does play rook g7. And to protect the pawn, you go rook g1. If the bishop were not on f6, queen h4 was a mate. But it is there, and Arjun makes a huge mistake. He goes bishop h5. Better was queen e8, trying to win the pawn this way. But bishop h5. Pawn takes, and knight to b5, trying to enter in. So he takes on d6. And pawn takes d6. And now knight to b5. That's a very strong move. And what's happening here is that black isn't breaking through onto the king side. Like he's broken through, but the white king is resilient. While the white knight is getting here, the rook is entering in. So he plays queen d7, attacking the knight. Maybe knight c7 followed by knight e6 is just crushing. He goes rook c6, also a strong move. Rook takes g6, and now take, and f3 is just a winning position here for white. But he takes on d6. That's a mistake because now the queen can go to f7, a very powerful move. And the main point is that after rook takes g6, you take back with the queen and not the bishop. And the bishop and the queen can launch a very powerful attack. So goes queen f7. Well, also it's important to notice if queen takes b5, there's just rook g6 and rook f6 hanging. So he plays queen f7, bishop g5 played now, and bishop drops back to g7. A huge mistake again. Queen h7 was the only move trying to attack here, which would have been a amazing position. But with bishop g7, now Arjun is once again lost completely because take, and knight d6. And in fact, white would be 2 pawns up with black having absolutely no compensation. And now knight d6. It's +7 for Matthias Bluebaum. Oh, he goes bishop h4. Okay, he's allowing Arjun to take this pawn. And I think Arjun would be more than happy to do that. And Arjun takes bishop e4. You can play knight d6. It's a good move. It goes queen g5. A very logical move. Trying to attack here. Trying to get the queen closer to the king. But rook f8 is a strong move for black. And finds it. Rook f8 on the board. Knight d6 with just 1 minute 30 seconds for Matthias. Queen f4 check. And if you take now, rook takes. He takes it, and Arjun seems to have escaped here because now the bishop is hanging and 40 moves will be completed. Next move, bishop to g3 and rook g4. And look at Matthias there, almost flipping over his pen there. He's not happy. He could have finished off Arjun totally in the game, but instead now is staring at a position that's equal. King h3, by the way, to attack here would not have worked because of bishop f3. So he plays knight e4, rook e4, rook to c1. And although white is a pawn up, it's not even opposite colored bishops. b4 is hanging, so rook takes b4 taken. Gives a check. Wants to come on the 7th rank. And he comes up king f7. So rook c7 check. And king g6. Makes a lot of sense. Well, you can take the pawn on a7 now. He takes it. He's a pawn up. And rook d4. Oh, rook d4 actually is a big blunder because of rook g7 and bishop e5. So need to be careful. Bishop f6 first by Arjun. And somehow Arjun's body language and Matthias's body language shows that both players are pretty much aware that this position is no longer winning for white. And you can see Matthias, I believe, thinking about all the missed possibilities for himself. King f5. He goes king g2. And now Arjun here is thinking about rook to d4. He's going to lose the d pawn. a5 played. He takes. Rook takes and bishop h4 to trade off the bishops and go into a pure rook endgame. He takes here. Rook takes. And now rook a8. And the rook comes back to d4. He goes rook d8. Pawn to e4 is all going to get traded. And Arjun Erigaisi survives this one. King comes back. King to g3. Rook takes pawn and the game is now drawn. They've exchanged the rooks. King takes d6. King f4. King d5 and now f3, trading off the final pawn here. Arjun takes. King f3 and a draw is agreed. And well, I'm pretty sure that Arjun is happy with this result. He pressed a bit too hard. He landed in a lost position. Matthias was right up there. He could feel it for the last 20 moves almost that he missed a winning opportunity. And for Arjun, it's good news because two losses back to back would have been very tough. With this one draw, he can still make a comeback in this tournament at 50% score. And Arjun leaves the table while Matthias folds the score sheet and sits there. He knows that this tournament is not going his way against Jaokir Sindarov. He got mated out of the blue. Here also, he's not been playing so well. He's been working, I'm pretty sure, extremely hard for his candidates. And such results do give him, I'm pretty sure, hope that he can face and beat the best players in the world. But yeah, it's also not easy. Not at all easy. But let's go, Matthias. I hope the next round will be better for you, or the coming rounds will be great. As of now, this is Sagar Shah signing off. Bye bye.